got that twinkle, she's got that flair. Chanel number 19 just fills the air. She takes a microphone and hits the street, revealing stories with a positive beat. From set to sofa is where it's at, and Lulu, darling, just loves a chat. She talks to stars with grace and style. Lulu sure will make you smile.
Hello, my lovelies. Settle in. You're listening to From Set to Sofa with Lulu, and I'm your hostess, Lulu. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today, and even more of a pleasure to introduce today's guest. He's a gentleman I had the great pleasure of working with in the early 80s. A delightful presence, truly a gentle giant. Warm, and dare I say it, rather a cuddly bear of a man. His career is nothing short of remarkable, stretching all the way back to the swinging 60s and showing incredible longevity right up to the present day. Now, beyond that instantly recognisable face from decades of Australian film and television, there's a facet of his talent that many of you might not be aware of. His significant work as a writer and script editor. I had some inkling, but discovering the full scope of his contribution was genuinely mind-blowing. He sprouted Shakespeare in Number 96 and even sang rock and roll as his character. For the film buffs amongst you, his commitment was such that he performed his own stunts in numerous classic Ozploitation movies. It's a career that has earned him the highest praise, including being labelled a legend by none other than Quentin Tarantino. By now, his name must be ringing in your ears. Yes, we are joined today by the legendary Roger Ward. So, let's get him on the line now. Hey, Rog, how are you today?
Hi, Lulu.
Hey.
Well, I love.
Now, listen, we met on the set of Lady Stay Dead, which has become a funny cult classic part of Ozploitation, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for being there.
Well, yeah, it was lovely to see you there, but I actually met you on Young Ramsey the year before.
Oh, true. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, you did.
That's where I first met you.
Yeah.
Because I loved your work. You know, I'd seen your work around town, and you always had an international flair about your work, which a lot of us didn't have, you know what I mean? But you always had that international flair that we needed. And I loved watching you. And then when I met you on Young Ramsey, I was quite happy to do that. And then, of course, we met on, as you say, Lady Stay Dead, and we worked together well in that. I love that. Yeah.
Oh, how very kind of you to say that, darling. I'm just so glad that you were on Lady Stay Dead. Oh, wow. It was fantastic. And remember, at the preview, there was a director, Igor Ausens, that said to his then girlfriend, Sally Morgan, "You lied to me. You said you were making a movie." Do you remember that?
Oh, I said that to him?
No. Igor said that to his girlfriend, Sally Morgan. And everyone went into hysterics because we weren't too sure whether it was going to be, you know, sort of a movie that would last. Or a movie, you know, what he was, because he was a director himself, you know.
Yeah, so, that's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I don't remember that, actually.
Yeah.
There's so many things that happen in your life.
I might have been in the front line and heard it. You may not have.
Yeah. Well, I would have remembered, I think, if I had heard it, because Igor, I like it. I worked with him in Crawford's, of course, as you did, but and other things I worked with him on.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice guy. Is he still around, do you know?
Don't know.
No.
And I haven't...
Unfortunately, there's so many of them going, you know.
Yeah. Now, Rog, your body of work is so immense. I mean, over 100 television shows and films, 3.5 pages of Wikipedia, unheard of.
Oh, my God.
I know. And Tarantino called you a legend.
Yeah.
You must have loved that.
I loved it, but unfortunately, Tarantino has that propensity every town he goes to, or every city he goes to, he picks out one of their actors and raves on about him and says he's wonderful. I noticed that he'll go to India and he'll select an Indian actor and say, oh, this guy is fabulous, you know. So he ingratiates himself in whichever country he's in. So I really can't take full credit for that. Although I'm happy that he actually felt the need to say something, but I did meet him in person here a couple of years later, and he was quite intimidated by me as I approached him. He sort of cringed in his chair. I don't know what he thought I was going to do, but we got on all right at the end. But I was quite taken aback by his reaction to me coming towards him, you know.
Wow. And he's a big guy too, isn't he?
Yeah, but he was sitting down at the time, and I thought he looked taller walking towards him. But I had a smile on my face, and my hand extended for shaking, not for punching, but maybe he thought it was the latter. Anyway, but as I say, his reaction surprised me because he'd raved on about me so much that I thought he'd leap up and give me a big hug. But no, he cringed in his chair.
Well, I mean, after all, you are an Ozploitation icon. After all.
And these days, after everybody else has died off, I'm the last man standing.
Yeah, not the last man standing. Now, let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
You were about 18 years of age when you went to Tahiti to begin writing your controversial novel, The Set.
Yeah.
And that was conceived in Adelaide, I believe, when you were a prolific member of the theatrical scene.
Exactly. That's right.
And you met many LGBT people and wanted to tell their story.
Yep. Well, I met the LGBT, whatever it is, LG, I can't ever remember that. Those letters.
LGBT, I believe.
Yeah. I tried to memorize it yesterday, actually, but I can't. In the theatrical world of Adelaide, which I started as a 12-year-old in the theatre at the Adelaide Repertory, which is quite an outstanding theatrical group, but mostly elderly people, well, elderly, 35, 40 people.
Yeah.
I was a 12-year-old kid, and I was desperate to get into the theatre, and I put a word on the one of the chairman or something, and got invited for an audition at 12, and of course I didn't have any. They said, "Okay, darling, give us one of your resumes, whatever they call them. Give us a soliloquy." I said, "What? Give us a soliloquy." Something in Shakespeare or what? I had no idea what they're talking about.
Yep.
So they said, well, tell us something. Well, in those days, I loved comedy, and I used to crack jokes. I was a comedian in a group, and people looked at me for laughs, as a show-off. And so I thought I'd memorized a comedy routine from an American guy off a record. So I did this comedy routine in front of all these people lined up with their pork pie hats and their pipes and cigars, looking at me with their cravats on. And I did this comedy routine in front of them. And, of course, it was met with deathly silence. And they said, Roger, for someone to do that routine so badly and yet not feel embarrassed at all, you must be an actor. Welcome to the club. And so I got in. Because I did that bad routine so badly and felt no animosity or remorse about it. They invited me. So I was a member of the Adelaide Repertory at 12.
Yeah.
But I didn't work for a year, and then later someone suggested I join the younger theatre group, which was called the Younger because there were younger people all about my age. And that was really a turning point for me because I suddenly met people of my own age with my own outgoing personality and, always wanted to be the center of attention. And I wasn't outgoing like I normally was. I became very introverted amongst them because they were so outrageous and loud, and then I've been a bit that way ever since, actually.
Well, you're such a gentle giant. It's wonderful. Such a gentleman. Yeah.
Thank you.
But then you went to Tahiti.
And
you
that's right. Yeah.
accidentally met Marlon Brando.
That's right.
Now tell us
what happened was. Go ahead, yeah.
Tell us the story about being an extra on Mutiny on the Bounty.
Right. Well, the reason I went to Tahiti was because I wanted to write the novel, the great Australian novel, I thought. And I was already a journalist with the Adelaide News. I was a cadet reporter. with the Adelaide News, and I wrote a lot of risque stories about the theatrical world because I mingled with the gay community quite openly and freely, and I loved them all. But I found a lot of things were happening about me that I thought, oh my God, they do that? They do this? So I thought it might be of interest to the general public to hear what goes on behind the scenes. So I wrote a lot of risque stories that the Adelaide News would not touch. Don't you dare bring that trash here. So I found an opening in Melbourne Truth, and I sold my stories to the Melbourne Truth. I was only about 18 or even less, 16, 17, and they bought my stories and published them. And it got to the stage where I was giving them so many stories I had to change my name. They didn't want to use my name, my byline, because there was too many of them. So I had that propensity to talk about risque things. And I thought, this would make a great novel instead of the usual, the bush rangers and the bushfires and all that. I thought I'd do a sociological novel about the 60s, the world we're living in right now. So that's why I went to Tahiti to write it. But I was sort of pretty scared when I got there because I went by boat and it was a lovely 10-day trip and, had 3 meals a day and a bed and so on. And suddenly I was surfed onto the shores of Tahiti, Papaiti, and I thought, oh, my God, I'm here. And all I had was a typewriter and a couple of reams of paper and hardly any money. And I thought, oh, my God, what do I do now? So I was quite depressed, and I did have a ticket on to London, which I had to have before they let me land. And I had a ticket on by air to London. And I thought, well, I can just hop on that and go to London if I get stuck or get lost or whatever. So anyway, I was depressed for about 2 or 3 days. I had nowhere to sleep. I was just wandering around and sleeping on the beach and on friends' yachts and so on that I befriended. And then all of a sudden I walked past a cafe that I couldn't afford a coffee at, and a couple of my mates who were there just on a holiday, and they were having coffee, and they said, hey, come over here, quick. I came over and I said, look who that is. And they pointed at some guy who had his back to us, quite a broad back, I remember. And he had a French-style T-shirt, striped.
Yep,
and,
sure.
Suddenly he turned. He heard us whispering. He was very astute, by the way. He heard us whispering and he turned. And I said, what? It's not, is it? He said, yes, it's Marlon Brando. And I suddenly thought, oh, my God, that's why I'm here. That's the reason I came to Tahiti, to meet Brando. Fate brought me here. So my whole attitude changed, and I suddenly felt as though I belonged, as if I had no worries. I just was so happy,
Yeah.
And Brando, seeing me talking, knew that we were talking about him.
Yeah.
So he got up and walked off. And but me, being the bastard I was, followed him. And I left up and followed him down the road. And Brando knew. He looked at me. As I said, he's very astute and very intelligent guy. He looked at me and smirked and looked away. And, of course, I wasn't too far away from him, but I wasn't on his heels. But he, all of a sudden, down the road a bit, an American tourist come out of a side street. And he suddenly looked up and he saw Brando walking towards him. He said, holy shit, that's Marlon Brando. And he pulled out his little tiny movie camera. Now, I heard him as clear as day. Brando would have heard him, but he ignored me. He made out he didn't hear the guy. And he gave the guy about 10 or 20 feet of footage while he walked towards him. And all of a sudden he looked up and, oh, my God, someone's taking a photograph. And he put his hands in front of his face and turned down a lane and ran. And just, oh, my God, you can't do that. But he gave the guy 20 feet, before he did that. And I suddenly thought, hang about, this guy's an actor, I wish he was. But and I suddenly realised that he wasn't a superstar that I thought he was normal, you know what I mean? I suddenly realised this guy was normal. After all the accolades and so on, like as he himself says, they made me a god, but they also made me a clown. He said that himself, And but we didn't talk. That was all we did. But I met another guy, Dewey Martin. Dewey. I think it's Dewey Martin. He was in the Proud and the Profane, and he married Peggy Lee. I can't see his last name anyway. He's an actor from Hollywood. He's a lovely guy, and we befriended each other. He was there getting over a divorce from Peggy Lee. And we became very close friends. And he said to me, look, I've got a meeting with the Mountie people this afternoon. Do you want to come? I said, yeah, bloody oath. He knew that I was a previously an actor, amateur, but he knew that. So I went to the meeting with him, and, of course, Brando was there, plus all of the luminaries, the director of the film that was going to happen, and a stack of people connected to the novel Mutant About Me. But Brando and I didn't say a word to each other. But we went to various meetings, 4 or 5. Brando and I sat there and didn't speak. And then finally, one day I went to an island called Maria, just for the day. I thought just for the day. And all I packed was my pareo and a snorkel and goggles. And when I got off the boat, Brando was standing there. But I saw Brando that morning in a coffee lounge, and I did speak to him that morning. I said, look, what are you doing about the, this is the first time I spoke to him. I said, what are you doing about the Mutiny on the Bounty? Where are you getting your actors from? And he looked at me up and down. He said, oh, we're getting our extras from the States. And I said, I'm not an extra. I'm an actor. And he went through a great motion of, rambled on. So I just left him. And next when I went to Costa Maria, he was there when I got on the island. I said, what the? I said, how did you get? I suddenly lost all my inhibitions. And I said, how did you get here so fast? He said, I came by speedboat. He said, I saw you floundering around out there. I went across by ferry, And he said, I saw you floundering around out there. And so that broke the ice, you know what I mean? And we just became good buddies. Not good buddies. No one could ever become a good buddy. But we were friends, We went to parties together. We laughed together. We even shared a bed one night. But there were two Mahinis in there with us. But that's beside the point. But I wrote a memoir once in bed with Brando. But nothing happened with it. But there were two women with us. But that's beside the point.
Oh, my God. So he was really a likeable guy.
Yeah, well, yeah. When he's nice, he's nice. But when he's an arsehole, he's an arsehole.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, he wasn't the only big star that you met, during your time. You met Trevor Howard, Richard Harris, Ryan O'Neill, Tom Selleck, amongst many, many others. How did you meet all them? Working?
Oh, well, Trevor Howard and Richard were on Mutiny, of course, and I didn't share a lot of the conversation with them. I was an extra on the film and treated as such. I went down to Maria to Bora Bora when I heard, after Brando gave me the bum's rush, he said, we're getting extras from Hollywood. He didn't want to know about that. So I contacted the production company and befriended some of the crew. But they said, look, why don't you slip down to Bora Bora? There's an island called Bora Bora further down. And they said, go down there. We're doing some scenes down there, opening sequence down there. They needed a lot of extras. So I went down to Bora Bora and I worked on that. It was just in a great big fishing scene, hundreds of people in it. And they said, okay, fine. Now, when you come back to Papa Eddie, come and see us. We'll probably use you as a continual extra. So I was just an extra in that film and did my best to hide my face. And I think I did it successfully. I don't think anybody's ever seen me in the bloody thing. I'd never seen myself. And I managed to hide. But I didn't speak too much to Howard or Richard. There was a lot of animosity on the set between them and Brando. And a lot of arguments. And I didn't want to get involved. I wanted to keep it clear. But as far as the others was concerned, Ryan O'Neill, that was in a film called Winners, I think it was called. Winners, I forget the bloody name of the film, but it was done down here. I played a bookmaker on it. And Ryan O'Neill, I think it was Winners, about a marathon runners, it was runners. And he was playing a runner. But I remember him being very aggressive. And we nearly got into fisticuffs, actually, because they had a run. I was playing the bookmaker, and Michael Winner, that's where I get the name from. I can't think of the name of the film. Anyway, Michael Winner was a director, an English director, very pompous and very but also one would think he was a homosexual, but he wasn't. He was the opposite to that. He treated everybody with disgust and treated them very badly, and he swore like a trooper. Anyway, he yelled out, "Will the bookmaker please come to the fucking set?" And he used to drop that F word all the time. and I was playing cards with Jimmy Elliott and a few other actors, and they said, that's you. I said, no, that's not me. I'm not the bookmaker. I'm Roger Ward. The next thing, the microphone, "Would the bookmaker come to the so-and-so bloody shack?" And I said, for God's sake, I need you. I said, bullshit. My name's Roger Ward. So I kept going, and then finally, "Would Roger Ward please?" "Thank you." And I came down to the set. And Winner understood what I'd done, you see. Ryan O'Neill had got the shits. He knew what was going on too. And they were doing running sequence, running about 200 yards or something. And Winner said, "Okay, go back to number ones." They did about 3 runs. And Ryan O'Neill was buggered. He flopped on the sand. It was on a beach. He flopped on the sand, exhausted after the run. And another old extra said, "Oh, I thought they'd do another shot." He said, "That one was different to the other one." And Ryan leapt up and said, so you're a bloody director now, are you? You know, he suddenly turned his anger onto this poor elderly extra. You think you're a bloody director now, do you? And the director, poor extra, went, what? And I said, hey, cool it, you know, settle down, cool it. He said, what do you think? What are you talking about? Anyway, he leapt up. He's an ex-boxer, by the way, amateur boxer. He leapt up and I said, you got any more scenes to do? Meaning you better not mess your face up, you know. And he said, nothing will happen to my bloody face. Have you got any things to do? I said, that's beside the point, you know. But, you know, we can't have a fight, you know. We've got a film to make. So he settled down, I settled down. So I never got to any further, but that was my incident with Ryan. But the other guy you mentioned was Tom Selleck, yeah. Again, that was another incident of nearly 50 cuts. I was booked quickly down under, and they said to me, okay, we need you to polish up your horse riding, go to Smokey Dawson's ranch and ride for as long as you like. We'll pay you $180 an hour. And I thought, wow, $180 an hour, great. So I hopped on a horse, spent about 8 hours in the bloody thing, and I buggered my back up. So I earned $180 an hour, and I buggered my back up. Yeah. And my back was unbelievably bad. So I went to physio, and he said to me, a chiro, actually. He said, you've got to go to bed for a week. I said, I can't. I leave for Alice Springs tomorrow. He said, you can't. You can't go to Alice Springs, mate. You've got to go to bed. And so I said, no, I'm sorry. So I walked out of there, went to the airport, and found out we're travelling in a small Cessna. There was an airstrike on. So they put me in a tiny Cessna with Chris Hayward and one other actor. And that's all the room we had. And we flew for about 8 hours to Alice Springs. And my back was just... I was actually trying to open the windows of the plane so I could climb out and drop to my safety and to peace, you know. I wanted to kill myself. I was in such agony.
Oh, I can imagine.
I turned up on the set. And there's a big party to welcome me and Chris. And I thought, I better get dressed up. So I put a nice shirt on and necktie and wandered out there with a camera. And then Tom walked up to me. He's wearing a pair of shorts. He looked like he come from Hawaii 5-0, you know. He's got his short and B-shirt on. He said, hey, buddy, what are you doing wearing a tie, you know? And he grabbed me by the necktie and tried to undo it for a joke, you know. Yeah. But of course, by grabbing by the tie, it jerked my back. And the spasms of pain went through me. And I smashed his hands away, you know, just smacked his hands away. And, you know, poor old Tom fell back with a shock on his face. And Simon Windsor come running up and he said, I remember Tom, meet Roger Ward. Roger was in Mad Max. And I said, mate, there's no need to sell me. This bastard will know who I am when he starts working with me, you know. And poor old Tom was going looking everywhere. And that was so embarrassing, you know. I felt so bad.
But he was ostensibly a nice guy, huh?
Oh, yeah, he was. We didn't
you know, it was just a sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. It was my fault. But he was trying to be nice. But I didn't talk. He didn't speak to me for a week. We worked together. All we did was pass lines between each other for a week. Didn't speak socially at all. But we had a big fight scene coming up, a big one. And I'd got myself fit by then, swimming every day. And I'd rehearsed the fight backwards with his stunt double. So I knew the fight backwards. But Tommy didn't want to rehearse with me until the day of the fight. And when we did the fight, it was beautiful because I knew it so backwards. And I whispered every move to Tom. You know, I said, okay, we're going to do this now. We're going to do this. Just whispered in his ear. So he realised that I wasn't an arsehole after all. And, of course, we finished the fight and he stood by, he got our photos taken, he shook my hand. He said, that was a great fight, thanks, buddy. And I got back to my motel room and there was an invitation to go for dinner with him, and which I did, and we shared cigars and talk stories. So we were mates after that, but it took a week or more to do it, you know. I just feel bad about that.
What a lovely ending to that story, though.
Yeah.
What a nice guy.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy.
Your film, The Set, when it was finally made, your beautiful book, was rather controversial. I mean, it was made in 1970 when things were really, really hotting up here in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you must have been very disappointed that it wasn't the film that you wanted, because a lot of the LGBT stuff was taken out, I believe.
Yeah, well, actually, the novel I wrote was quite a long one, 400 odd pages, and as you know, a film script's about 90 to 120. So Frank Britton, the director, who bought the film rights from me, said to me, look, write a film play just with the homosexual quality in it. I said, I can't do that. I can't cut it. I can't do that. He said, give me the script. Give me the manuscript. You got the manuscript. And he put a blue line through every page.
Oh.
He wanted me to make a film script of, which was all the homosexual quality,
Yeah.
So I went away and I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And I ended up with a really comedic script, quite with the LGBT or whatever in it.
Yeah.
But was comedic.
You got it then.
Yeah, right. And but unbeknownst to me, his wife, 24-year-old blonde, third wife, who wanted to be a starlet, she rewrote the bloody script and put herself in there as one of the characters.
Oh.
And I didn't know that because I'd left town. I went back to Adelaide where I bought a house. And I was down there for about a year while the film was being sold or produced, ready to get produced. And I didn't know this was going on. And when I came back for the film, I suddenly found this unusual character in there, And I said, who the hell wrote this? Who's this character? And she said, I wrote that. I'm playing a part in the film. I said, what? And so I suddenly read the script in great detail and found out there was a hell of a lot of bad stuff in there. So I tried to salvage it and didn't have time to. So I was on set. Frank brought me up for the film, and I was on set. They didn't give me a script, and I managed to get one from one of the actors, and I was quite appalled at what was going on. So I just sat on set and yelled out, no, that's not the lines, And I had the audacity to actually say, cut, that's not the lines, And of course, that wasn't a very nice thing to do because Frank was directing. And he put up with it for about a week or so, and then he threw me out of town. He said, I'm sending you back to Adelaide for the publicity reasons. I'll have the press waiting for you at the airport, and we'll finally reveal that you wrote the novel, and it wasn't known who wrote it at that stage. And so I went down to Adelaide expecting a big press reception, and the airport was deserted. I was flying out of town.
Oh, right.
And I got the message. And even the premiere of the film, I wasn't invited to the premiere. He said to me, look, I wish I could bring you up to the premiere, but I can't afford it. And it wasn't until 40 or 50 years later when we did the DVD of the film that I met some of the actors from there, and they said, it was great. Frank brought me and my girlfriend up, and he brought everybody up except the writer, you know what I mean? And I didn't know that. For many years I didn't know that. I believed that he was out of money. But anyway.
Oh, what a disappointing thing for you, though, that it wasn't the novel that you had written and envisaged.
No. That's right. Well, when I got the novel out, I put the novel out in 2011. So, see, the film was made actually in 69, released in 70, and it wasn't until 2011, 41 years later, that I put the novel out. And I was so relieved that people could actually read the novel and read what it should have been. And on the DVD, when they released that in around about 2016, I insisted on having a version of the film, of the book, on there, like a Kindle copy of the film, of the book, on the DVD, so people could actually buy the film, see it, and then they could read the novel if they felt inclined. So that is on the actual DVD, the Kindle edition of the film. Because I'm so determined to let people know that that trash that became the film wasn't what I wrote,
Yeah. And that was a good way of doing it too. But
yeah.
You didn't really have to worry about all that because in the early 60s, you were in so many television shows, Homicide, Hunter, Skippy, just to name a few. And you were also script editor for Homicide. Yeah.
Well, script, that was good. I enjoyed that. But again, I made enemies there because, you see, unfortunately, they give me a job to do and I want to do it, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And Homicide at that stage had been going for, I forget how many years. I think it was 12 years or I forget how long. It was quite a long time. And as you know, those detectives were running around with pork pie hats on, playing guitar in the office, singing, going down the pub at the slightest provocation. And I said to Hector, mate, you've got to get these guys back in as police. You've got to bring a tough sergeant in there. Saying, hey, get rid of the pork pie hats, smash the guitars over the desk. You've got to get them back to being police officers, not bloody Peter, Paul and Mary. And he said, you're trying to save a 12 years. You're trying to, this is 12 years of success. Don't you try and change that. And okay, do what you like, Anyway, of course, it folded just after that. And I had a great feeling of pleasure when I read in the bulletin after The Man from Hong Kong, if only the police detectives in homicide had done what Roger Ward and Hugh Keith-Byrne did in The Man from Hong Kong, the series may have been salvaged.
Good on you.
That was sort of a feedback, that I got.
Yeah.
That our characterizations, which are virtually based on what I said to the actor, did ring true to someone.
Wonder whether Hector actually, realised that in the end.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he did because he brought Bud Tingwell in as a tough guy, and things did change slightly. He brought Bud in, and Buddy's a very good actor, as you know.
Oh yeah.
And he was quite interested to work with me, and he knew that I'd choreographed a few fight scenes. He knew that I had that ability, so he said to me, "Look, I'm doing a big fight scene, and I'd like the people to know that I can handle a fight scene because I'm new back in Australia." And I said, "Oh yeah." And I looked at his body, and he had a little rotund body, little round body, and I thought, he's not going to be too bloody red hot with his fist. So I said, "Well, how are you with your fist?" And he went whack, 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 whack. He didn't hit me, but he threw those fists so fast, all around my face and body, didn't touch me, just went within an inch.
Yep.
And I said,
Stage.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. So we choreographed a great big fight scene that on a wharf, and it ended up with me being chucked into the water. And it was so successful, they brought TV Week over and they covered the fight scene, and they gave it a double-page spread on TV Week. And Buddy was so happy with it, he blew the photos up and walled his office with it. Put wallpaper. It's made a wallpaper wall out of the fight. So he was very happy that we did this opening fight sequence for him that showed the world, or at least Australia, that he can handle himself and play the part of the tough guy, which was good.
Great stuff. Look, then, in 1975, you had an amazing jump over to the other side, which was in number 96.
Yeah.
Now, did Frank Weppo Smith typecast you? Did people expect you to be Weppo in the street?
Oh, yeah, everyone. Weppo was quite favourite. People loved him, yeah.
Yeah.
I see clips of it now, here and there, and I'm quite embarrassed. It wasn't bad. It wasn't well done, I was over the top. But because he had to quote Shakespeare and rock and roll. I didn't mind the first couple of episodes where I was playing a rock and roll dancer and singer and a garbage collector. I didn't mind it then. But later, when they started to try and make me sophisticated, maybe a chef in the wine bar, and I had a love affair with Norma, that's when I got a bit, my performance I didn't like. It was too blasé. I was trying to be too smooth, you know what I mean?
Laid back?
Yeah. Actually, the comedy about the actual getting the job was I was promoting Man from Hong Kong in the beginning of 75, I think it was. It was opening in Perth. And I was sent over there with George Lazenby and I had a big resume to fulfill in Perth. And while I was there, my sister lived in Perth. So I said to my sister, "Look, darling, I'll come and stay with you for a couple of weeks. I'm coming over to Perth and I'll stay on for a couple of weeks." So, yeah, that was a big plan. So I arrived in Perth, and about the 2 days after I arrived there, my agent rang and said, "Listen, can you get back to Sydney pretty urgently? They want you to audition for number 96. I said, "No way. I'm not coming back to audition for that. And I've got to stay on here for a couple of weeks, She said, "No, you can't do that. They want you." I said, "Mate, I'm not coming back. No way." She said, "It's a regular part in the series. I think you should come back." So I spoke to my sister and she said, "Yeah, go back. So I flew back, but I got back early morning, and I think it was a weekday, but it was early morning. I tried to ring my agent. She didn't answer the phone. So I didn't know what the character was. I didn't have a script. I didn't know what the character was. So I went across to the offices of Cash Harmon, and no one was there yet. So I sat in the steps till someone turned up, and I said, "Have you got the audition pieces for a character I'm doing?" And they had no idea who I was, what I was there for. So I thought, "Oh, God." So I sat around. Finally, someone came in that didn't know what I was talking about, went inside and grabbed a couple of pieces of paper and said, this is your script, and this is who you are." And that's when I read it. Weppo Smith, garbage collecting, rock and roll singing, Shakespeare quoting. I said, "What?" Oh, my God. And I thought I'll never learn the lines. So there were masses of lines, including Shakespeare and all. I thought, I'll never learn the lines. I only had about an hour to go, you know. So I thought the best thing I can do is go out, buy the clothes that will suit the character, and at least dress to look like him.
Sure.
So I rushed off to an op shop and bought an old suit, loud necktie, hobnail boots, braces, and I paid $10 or $15 for that. Went back and I dressed in it and went back to Harmon, walked in the doors, and there was about 20 other actors sitting in the corridor. 20 other actors lined up for the part, top-line comedians.
Yeah.
Slim de Grey was amongst them. And I thought, what? I'm not the only one. There's 20 other guys. But as I walked in, Carol Ray walked out of the office, said, Roger, and I just timed it that I was first to be called. And I said, oh, me, and all the other actors thought, this guy just walked in and he's called in. So I went into the office, not knowing the lines, but dressed like I was. So as I walked in the door, I started to sing, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. And Bill Harmon's sitting in his desk looking at, what the goddamn hell, what's going on? And Carol Ray, bless her heart, she got the message. So she joined in. 1, 2, 3 o'clock. We're singing together as we dance towards the table, and we're dancing rock and roll. And Bill Harmon's screaming, oh, stop, for God's sake, this ain't no street, this goddamn stop. So we ignored him. We just danced and sang. And then finally we sat down, and Bill said, for Christ's sake, come on, get on with it. Just give us some lines, throw some lines of it. So we started to talk the lines, and then as soon as rock and roll came up again, we jumped up and started to dance. He said, get out of the goddamn office. Go. Yeah, whatever, go. And Carol stood up with me and walked to the door with me and winked at me and, shut the door on me. And all the other actors, he heard everything going. They all glared at me as I walked past them, And I went across to my office, to my agent's office. It only took 20 minutes to get there. And she's on the phone. And she said, yes, lovely, thank you. And she hung up. She said, you've got the job. I said, what? She said, you've got
Wonderful.
Webbo.
Wonderful.
They got 20 other actors there. So, he just ignored the other actors and signed me. And so, that was it. But I only did it 5 or 6 weeks, and then that was all I was for, 5 or 6 weeks. So they said, off you go. It's all over. And so I went back to Adelaide where I lived and for Christmas, and then I got a telegram, will I come back and we'll give you, and I said, no, I'm not coming back. By then I thought, well, I've done the 5 weeks, that was enough. And I was very happy in Adelaide with the family. And they said, look, we'll give you a romantic interest. Please come back, we'll give you a romantic interest. I thought, oh, maybe Abigail, I thought, I said, okay, I'll come back. And because they gave me Norma Whittaker from the wine bar,
Abigail, Norma, which one?
But apparently she had been put off as well. I found out later that she had reached the end of her tether. And they said, look, we've got to find a new storyline for you. We'll try and get you a love interest. What sort of a man do you like?
Oh, no.
She said, I like a big man. I like a big man. And she said in the book, and they gave me the biggest in the business, Roger Ward. She said, oh, that was nice of her to say that,
It was great. But you're still enjoying the cast and crew with the catch-ups. Meeting the other day, when Joe Hasham was in town, and it was just, it's great. It's terrific that, you're still, sort of thoroughly enjoying each other's company, and
it was great. You were in 96, weren't you?
2 weeks, and then I left to go to England after that. So I never saw it, and that was my debut on television.
Really?
That was my debut at the age of 24. Yeah.
Oh, but you've been on for a young kid, hadn't you?
Yes.
You were doing theatre before? Yeah.
Well, as a teenager and late teenage years and early 20s. And I was actually doing theatre at that time when I did number 96. So it was a bit of a push.
Nice.
But look, it was great. And I mean, the thing is that it just, gave me my first opportunity to be on television.
Oh, yeah. Oh, nothing wrong with it, yeah.
As an actress, rather than doing commercials.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We did everything, whatever was offered, we just grabbed,
Totally. We were working actors back then.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't afford to it.
After number 96, you did many Ozploitation films, Stone, Mad Dog Morgan, The Irishman, and later Turkey Shoot. Then the big one, Mad Max. And I believe you were the only known actor at the time in that particular production.
That's right. Yeah, well, George wanted unknowns in the film. He wanted the people to think they were real bikers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he put the word on me, he said, "Would you shave your head?" The character did need a shaved head. I mean, the character was written to have a shaved head, but also the papers or the publicity said he asked Ward to shave his head because no one would recognise a bald Ward. Because in those days, I did have I had a healthy head of hair. But funnily enough, I'd always wanted to shave my head for some reason. I fancied the idea, but I was too scared to do it. And when that opportunity came, I was pleased. I said, yeah, great. And really the only reason I accepted the film was because I could shave my head, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, it was, to me, Mad Max was just another film, you know what I mean? As you say, we were doing
just another
film
gig.
after film after film. Yeah, that's right. So I had no idea it was going to go anywhere. And I was going from one film to the other. And when George, or my agent rang and said, this George Miller's coming to see you. And there's two George Millers. You probably know the other George Miller. Naughty
George Miller. And Dr.
Right,
George. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I knew Naughty quite well, and we'd spent many a drunken hour together down in Melbourne during my days down there. And of course, when she said George Miller's coming to see you, I thought it was Naughty. So I bought a dozen beers and put a lamb roast in the oven, and when a stranger knocked on my door, I thought, what? He understood. He said, "Oh, were you expecting the other George Miller?" I said, "Yeah, I was. Come in." He said, "Oh, no, I won't come in." I said, "We're not going to stand on the doorstep and talk. Just come in. I've got a leg of lamb. I've got a beer." "Oh, no, I won't eat. I won't drink." Anyway, I finally convinced him to do both, and we sat there for a long time talking. And then finally, I said, "Yes, well, I'd love to do it." I read the characterization and said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And he said, "Oh, that's great." And I said, "Well, but before we do that, how much am I going to get? What sort of money are you offering?" He said, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "Well, I can't work for less than $1,000 a week." In those days, $1,000 was reasonable, wasn't outrageous. He said, "Oh, I can't afford that. I can't afford $1,000 a week. I'm playing scale, I'm playing $200 a week." And I said, "Oh, sorry, but I'd love to do it, but I just can't do it for that, So he said, "Oh, just a minute." He sat with his script on his lap, fiddling with a pen and jotting down numbers on his lap. And he suddenly looked up with a big smile. He said, I can do it. I said, "I'm great. How many weeks?" He said, "1. I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I'll cram all your work into 1 week." You bastard, I thought to myself. And so all my work was crammed in, and there was other work I should have done that wasn't.
Yeah.
And at the end of the week, I was starting to realise that this film had legs,
Sure.
Maybe this film's going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe I should offer my services for points, And I thought, George said, "Well, Fifi," like he's on the one side of the set and I was on the other, and he was talking across the set. And he said, "Well, Fifi, this is your last scene." And I said, "Yeah, George, yeah." And I was that, and we looked at each other. We're both thinking the same thing. And I'm saying to myself, shall I ask? I'll work on for points. And then I said, no. You've set your criteria. Stick to it.
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay, George,
And
it's been lovely to work with you."
that name, Fifi, goodness gracious. I mean, that was, were you teased by people, friends, about the name?
No, I never gave it a thought. I just liked the name. I don't know where he got it from. I think his name's Fred Fifi McAfee.
Oh.
So that's his name, Fred Fifi McAfee.
Yeah.
I never gave a thought to the name or to the leathers I was wearing or to the scarf that I chose to wear. Like I chose a scarf that I wore in the bare top scene, or I wore a scarf all through. But the reason I chose a scarf to wear was because I knew how to do a bare top scene, and a bare pallid body like I had, it's not very attractive, And if I break it up with a black scarf, it'll make it look better. The same as I did with the moustache. I thought, God, my face bald with a bald head. No, not going to work. So I grew that big moustache to balance the face, So that's what I thought. If I balance my face with a moustache and my body with a scarf. But of course, all the gays come out of the closet. They thought I was a bear,
Yeah.
And they just love me. I can't believe it. I don't mind. I mean, but to have a bear ask me out for dinner and would you come out for dinner? And oh, hi, baby, and get all these bloody fan mails from guys. What? I had no idea that I was conceived in that area. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I was blind to it. Yeah.
And you did lots of your own stunts. I mean, Grant Page, with the driving and the no CGI in those days. So, it was...
No, I didn't have to do many stunts in that. But all my previous films, I've done driving stunts. I've done fight scenes, falls. I've done the lot. I was made an honorary stunt member actually years ago when. See, before we had stuntmen, when we first started, there were no stuntmen.
No.
And we all did our own stunts, all of us.
Yeah.
And then the stuntmen came in. They started to niggle their way in.
Yep.
And they started to form a union, which annoyed me because suddenly they're telling me, these newcomers, are saying, hey, you can't do that. I said, I beg your pardon. I've been doing it for 15 years, you can't do your own fights. We have to do it for you. I said, bullshit. So a few of the old hands who knew me said, oh, no, Roger can handle anything you want. And so they made me an associate stuntman.
Yeah.
I was allowed to do my own stunts. I couldn't double anybody else. Not they would or wanted to, but I could do my own
But you were
stunts.
allowed to do your own stunts, which was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that did annoy me that unionism got into it,
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, after Mad Max, did your pay go up or did it elevate your status or was it easier to get roles?
Well, I did, but they all wanted the bald head. Everybody wanted the bald head.
Yeah.
I did actually go overseas in 78. So we actually made that in the end of 77. But I went overseas in Feb 78. So I wasn't here for the fanfare, really, of that. But when I came back, everybody wanted me with a bald head. When you mentioned Turkey Shoot just a while ago, they booked me. That was 82, I think it was.
Yep.
81. They booked me for Turkey Shoot. And I turned up on the set with thick hair and the makings of a moustache. And I had no idea what the character was. Again, I drove up. There was an airline strike, so I drove up with my kids for a bit of a holiday. And they suddenly said, where are you, for God's sake? I was down in Airlie Beach. They said, quick, we need you. You need to start shooting tomorrow. Oh, thanks a lot. So I hopped in the car and cracked every speed limit to get there. And I got there and they said, oh, we wanted you with a shaved head. I said, well, no one told me about that. So I said, you better speak to my agent about that. So I actually rang my agent and handed the phone over to the producer. I was standing alongside of him. He said, oh, we need Roger to shave his head. And all of a sudden he goes, what? $1,000? $1,000 for the bastard to shave his head? I can remember when he worked for $1,000. And he banged the phone down. He said, he wants you to get $1,000 to shave your head. And I just shrugged my shoulders and he said, shave it. He told her to make it. He said, shave it. And the next day he gave me a check for $1,000.
Great.
I got $1,000 to shave my head.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Now, you still have reunions for Mad Max too, don't you? Seeing all your fellow actors and stunt guys and everyone.
Yeah.
So,
we 2 or 3 a year, actually. Yeah.
Great.
There's various states. That Comic-Con thing, what do they call it? The Comic-Con type thing they have here. And also we have our own, 25th anniversary, 50th anniversary.
Gosh.
All the various anniversaries.
Yep.
And also I do another one for Hook. I played a character called Hook in Stone, and they have a yearly event every September called Weekend with Hooks. And I'm the virtual guest of honour, I suppose. And I go there and talk and carry on, sign photos and all that. So that's on every year as well. So, I have a lot of annual functions for the various films I'm in, which is good. I like it.
It keeps you busy and it keeps you in contact and socialising. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And also nice. Reminiscing. It's what this show is given to me is the fact that I can reminisce about and talk to all the wonderful people that I've worked with and the shows that I'm, it's just a lovely thing to do and have reunions.
Oh, yes, lovely.
Yeah. Now, was it after Mad Max that you met your lovely wife, Jay?
Yes, after Mad Max.
Yeah.
When it was 81, she came out to interview, she's an Indian journalist, by the way, and she came out to interview actors, but she was a showbiz writer for the Times of India.
Wow.
And they sent her out to interview Australian actors, and I was on the list.
Great.
But at that time that she came, a friend of mine's a modelling agent, and he'd seen her at SBS. She was hovering around SBS for some reason, and he'd met her. He'd seen her there and chatted her up. And he said, I'm a modelling agent. Would you care to do a bit of modelling? Because she was quite an attractive, slim kid. And so she did a couple of photo shoots with him. And at that same time, I was raising money for my second novel. I wrote a second novel called, I called it Reflex, but I sold it to Terry Burke again for nearly $100,000, actually. I sold that for, but again, that was taken out of my hands and destroyed. And he called it Brothers and destroyed the whole concept.
Yeah.
But I was paid well. I was paid well for that. And we were raising money for that film about mid-'81, just after this modelling agent met Jay. And he was associated with Terry. He was a still photographer as well. So he brought JS3 along to that function. And, of course, I was the writer of the book that it was adapted for. So I was there as one of the guests and talking to the crew. And she turned up with a bunch of models. He brought her along with a bunch of models to decorate the place, you know. And I saw her across the crowded room. I thought, my God, who's that? And she looked lovely, and she smiled at me. And the beaming white teeth looked at me in this dusky face. You know, I thought, oh, yes. She's lovely. So I went over to speak to her. And I said, oh, hi, I'm Roger Ward. She said, oh, you're Roger Ward. Yes, of course. And, of course, next thing, one of my old girlfriends, I think you know her, France. Remember that French girl? You ever met France?
Oh,
you probably
no, I don't think so.
I know. I thought
no.
She was a crazy French woman who I got rid of many times. And she found her way to the function. And she saw me talking to Jay, and she bounded over after I left Jay. She bounded over and said, you keep away from my husband. He is my husband. Don't speak to him, unbeknownst to me. But of course, Jay, being Indian and innocent, she, oh my God, he's married. And she took off. And of course, through the night, I'm saying, where is she? Where is she? I can't see her anywhere. And of course, she'd taken off, scared by this stupid French woman. So it went for about a fortnight before I actually tracked her down and found her. And she said, look, I'm here actually to interview you for this Times of India. So we got to know each other quite well. And she overstayed her welcome. She should have gone back with a visa that she had. And she didn't go back. She hobbled. So I did turkey shoot then. I did turkey shoot.
Yep.
So I said, would you like to come up? And you can be on the set and interview actors up there. So she befriended the American actors up there and actresses and so on. She got some good stories from them. But I overstayed her welcome, unfortunately. And the government got under her and said, you've got to leave the country quickly or you'll be bloody deported. So she left. And, of course, I thought that was the end of that, I thought, oh, that's the end of that. But one thing led to another. We recommunicated with each other again, and I found myself running around India in 1980. I was running all around India chasing after her, and we ended up getting married in Sri Lanka.
Oh, how lovely.
And came back down here and couldn't get back in Australia because of the history. So we had to live in New Zealand for a while, which we did. And I was new boy in the block in New Zealand, and I had a rehash of my career. It was nice to be a new boy in the block. And I had a good career in New Zealand because, I was in everything they had because I was a new boy and they needed new blood. So that was quite a nice sojourn in New Zealand. But then they finally lifted the ban and we came to Australia and we've been here ever since.
And Jay supported you and you her all this time. I mean, 40 years in the industry of being married is congratulations to both of you.
Oh, she's great. Yes, she's great. She worked for me as an editor. I'm a writer as well. And she's a very, very strict editor, very tough. Actually, when I published a set, she went through it and she carved out 30, 40 pages out of it, which I didn't know. And when I read the edited version, I didn't say a word. And she said, there's anything different? I said, no, it's fine. It reads lovely. She said, oh, right, good. I cut about 40 pages out of the funny. I had no idea she'd cut it out. But, she's a very good editor. And so we work well together as a team, Yeah.
Now, Rog, I remember in 1981 or thereabouts, you played Detective Sergeant Dangerfield in the Squad, aka the Homicide Squad.
Yeah.
And I played John Gregg's wife in that. It was meant to go to a series. It didn't.
Yeah.
And we were all so disappointed, weren't we?
Oh, yeah. I love that.
It was a great show.
It was.
Great cast.
I loved it, yeah.
Yeah,
bloody, yeah, it was good, yeah. I wish that had gone. I really enjoyed that, yeah. I remember Terry Burke's wife saying to me, she saw the, must have saw Rushes or she saw the pilot or something, and she said to me, she was a Japanese girl.
Yes, I remember.
And she said to me, yeah. I see Squad. She said, you be star. I said, I beg your pardon? She said, you be star. I said, hey, I'm already a bloody star,
Yeah.
bitch.
Yeah, and you are, and were, and are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, just one thing on that. Every production needs supporting actors. And you were always such a favourite, a tremendous, how did you feel being the bridesmaid and not the bride, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, I always, I did get annoyed about that. I did get annoyed about, I never had the matinee idol face. And by the time I hit the major films, I was 30, 32, 33. So I wasn't the 18-year-old starlet anymore,
Yeah.
And I was very happy to do the roles that I did because I love those vicious roles where you can get your teeth into it. And I love that. And I love that characterization. I love the fact that they let me do my own thing. I never was directed. The directors would let me go ahead, to do what I wanted to do. They'd pull me up. I was going too far, but seldom did they do that. And I just love those roles. I love those characters.
It's the antithesis of what you are, those tough roles, because you're such a gentle giant, Yeah,
but I do a lot of comedy.
Yeah.
Well.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
But my very first homicide, the very first one I ever did, was actually a lovely role, and a decent, well-dressed guy who has the girl, kisses the girl, and that was my first one. And it was called The Wild Cockatoo. And sometimes I wish that was the last thing I ever did. I wish I'd pulled the plug then sometimes when I do some of these bad shows, shitpot shows that I have to do because of the money or determined to do because I'm not going to turn it down. But I sometimes wish I'd stopped at Wild Cockatoo because that was a fabulous script and a fabulous character who kisses the girl, my wife, as it stands. But I was dressed well and all that shit. But funny enough, the girl that I got, I don't think she's ever worked again. I can't see her work ever again. But what happened was she played my wife and we were rehearsing it. And Sonia Borg was directing it, actually. And it came to the kiss goodbye. I had to kiss my wife goodbye. All right, darling, goodbye. And I grab her to kiss her. And she says, oh, no. I'd rather not kiss him. Can I kiss him on the day we do the take? And Sonia says, what? And I'm thinking, what have I eaten? What have I eaten?
Yeah.
I thought, what's going on here? So Sonia said, you've got to kiss him. You've got to get used to kissing him. She said, no, I'd rather not. My husband wouldn't like it.
Oh, what?
And so, yeah. So Sonia looked at me and I shrugged her. I said, let it go. So come the day of rehearsal, shooting, about 7 o'clock, we turn up on the set. And, of course, we go down and we start the scene and bang, in goes the kiss. And, my God, she went berserk. She started to heavy breathe and she stuck her tongue down my throat.
No.
She's writhing against me. What? And I opened my eyes up and they're zooming in for a close-up because they were wide before that. And she's writhing her body into me and they suddenly, oh, my God. And they're bringing it in close so they can get rid of her body. And Sonia comes puttering down from the room and I can see her as I got my eyes open, looking at her coming towards me. And she's got a look of amazement on her face, And she's there, cut. And the girl didn't cut. She kept kissing me,
God.
Anyway, she broke away and she was obviously a nymphomaniac or something. I don't know. Anyway.
Wow.
And Sonia said, your husband gave you permission. She jokingly said,
Yeah.
And the girl said, she said, I didn't tell him. She said he'll soon find out. Anyway, I never ever got that girl's name. I could probably look it up in the credits, but I've never seen her ever again on television. But she was obviously a nymphomaniac and was too scared to do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
she had no control.
Yeah.
And amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, was that the character or was there another character that you portrayed that you've had a deep personal connection to? Was there one?
No. Well, one that I'm thinking of as I was telling you this kiss story, it was a sequel to what happened. A similar situation happened. But this time I was playing a dual role. I was playing an Indian, a black Indian sheik, Sheikh, with a turban, and I was playing an Aboriginal, a jailhouse Aboriginal.
Right.
So I was playing a dual role based on Antigone for the ABC in South Australia. And I played these dual roles. One was a very elegant doctor with a turban, a suit, but a very black face, and the other was an Aboriginal in jail. And I had to play the two contrasting, no matter what colour your skin was, you were what you are. And
Yeah.
So I was thinking of that. That was to play the Indian guy, to go for lunch with the crew dressed as this well-dressed Indian, go to the hotels for lunch, and I was treated with respect, but with a false respect, you know what I mean? Like, oh, hello, are you enjoying the meal? Would you like another drink? Like, it was a false, I must be polite to this guy, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I could sense it. They didn't know I was an actor. They thought I was the real deal.
Yeah.
And I could sense how these people feel, these dark-skinned people feel the way we treat them. Instead of treating them normal, we treat them with that tinge of too much respect or a lack of respect. We go either way. We don't treat them down the middle, which we should. So that sort of taught me that.
As an equal, you mean?
Exactly, yeah, that's right. Instead of treating them like a normal, everyday person like we are, they are.
Yeah.
They go like the other way, either way.
I get it.
So that was one thing that taught me. But no, otherwise, none of my characters really. I played stroke victims. I played loving fathers. So, yeah, a lot of them do ring true. But the ones I love are the killers and the homicidal maniacs. I do love those. You know what I mean? I don't know why. I think it's just keeps me off the street.
Because it's acting and it's not you. Yeah. You know, it was
that's right.
my Deborah Kendall in Young Doctors, you know, it was just, and over the top, you know.
That's right.
And fun.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it's just the antithesis of what you are. I think that's what it is, you know?
That's right, exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
It's nice to get acknowledgement too.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in the business for a long time, and it's lovely nowadays with the World Wide Web to get letters and fan mail and just hi from people all around the world, you know?
Yeah.
Germany, you know, Switzerland, South America, India, Japan, you know. It's just lovely to get those words of acknowledgement from those people that you would never know had seen your work. It wasn't for the wide world war, you know, wide world
web. World Wide Web.
Yeah. Well, I bet if you will, I must forget it. Anyway, the WWW.
Yeah, that's it.
But if it wasn't for that, we would never know that our work was being seen.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to get the odd fan letter before that, but now it's great. I just love it. I love getting the letters and people sending me photographs. Would you mind signing this? But I don't. When they send me photographs and say, "Look, would you sign this?" And I send it back to them, it annoys me when they don't say thanks. I got it. You know, they love to send the photograph, but you go out of your way to do it, sign it, put a message in it. Send it back at your own expense, and they don't have the decency to say, thanks, I got it. That's what annoys me. Some do, but those that don't annoy me. That's what annoys me. But it is nice to be acknowledged, yeah.
Now, Rog, do you enjoy the writing side or prefer the acting?
I prefer the writing, actually.
Do you?
The writing, I can create my characters, whereas the directing, I said to you a while ago, I don't take direction or don't get directed, but you are confined to a certain area. You can't go beyond it. As a writer, you can go into everybody's characterization. You can be everybody on that page, and you can be everybody on the page. So you are much freer. You can write a big steamer, or you can write an aeroplane crashing, or a car rolling over. You can write dead bodies flying from the windows. You can't do that as an actor. And I love the freedom of writing. Yeah, I love it. I'm actually working on, I just finished my memoirs, 2 volumes of memoirs.
I was going to ask you about that, so I'm glad we're talking about it now. So that's great.
Yeah, well, Nigel Giles, you know, he wrote the 96 books. And Nigel said, would you write the memoirs, you know? Yeah. And I said, well, I've actually written them, you know, years ago, like 20 years ago, I've written them, but I didn't do anything with them. That was what I told you in bed with Brando. But that was a very comedic and off the top of my head. He said, no, I'd like to do them. So I do have diaries. I've kept diaries since I was 15, 16, and I've got my whole life in diaries. And they were in the shed in a big box. So I thought, well, this time when I write my memoirs, I'll go and get those diaries and drag them out of the shed. And, of course, it took me a day to sort them into chronological order. And then I went, you know, way back when I was 15, 16 and worked through them. And that's how I wrote my memoir. So it's very chronological. And it's gone into the 2nd volume. And there's enough material still left for the 3rd volume, which I'm not ready to edit yet because we've got 2 volumes finished. But in the meantime, I went through my stuff and I found the book that I'd sold, the 2nd film I've sold to Terry Burke, which was called Brothers. The film, but I called it Reflex. Yeah. And that was sent from pillar to post. And I got a lot of good critiques about that from 1978 in Cannes, when I took it to Cannes to try and flog it, until 82 when Terry made it. I had very a lot of good reports on that, but they were too scared to use it because it was about the Vietnam War. And people were saying, oh, we can't use that. We can't, the Vietnam War is an open wound. We can't touch it. And all of a sudden, producers and directors from big companies said to me, oh, by the way, Roger, you still got that script. What script? The one about Vietnam. Yes, why? Well, we might be able to do something with it. Oh, why is that? Because the American film company in the Philippines is making a film called Apocalypse Now. All about I said, hey, you had your opportunity to be first. Now, because the Yanks are on the bandwagon, you want to get on it? No, I'm sorry, it's not for sale. See, like I'm a hot-tempered bastard that way, or pig-headed. And I said, no, I'm not going to sell it. You know, it's the second best. You're making it second best, you know, because I was being compared by then with Coming Home and The Deer Hunter. Everything my book had in it was long before The Deer Hunter, long before The Coming Home, and yet everybody was starting to compare it. When everybody that read it between 78 and 82 said, oh, you're copying The Deer Hunter. I've been on that for 25 years. You know, I've been working that particular script for 25 years as I went through the years.
Yeah.
So anyway, I refused to sell it. So I went to Terry Burke and I said, mate, I've got so many people interested in this film. I think I'll make it myself. I'll produce it. Can you do a budget? He said, it'll cost you $1,000. I said, okay. I had money in those days. I said, sure, okay. Chucked him $1,000. He did the budget. And by doing the budget, he had to read the book. And he said, who's directing this? I said, George Miller from Mad Max, which he was. I'd been talking with George, and George and I had come to the agreement that he would do it. And he said, he can't direct traffic. I said, bullshit. He's good. I'll use him. He said, no. He said, he can't direct traffic. I will direct it, Terry said. I said, no, I didn't want Terry to go near it, you know.
Yeah.
So Terry said, what I intend to do was this. And he started to rattle off what he was going to do. And I said, hang about. He knows what he's talking about. But, of course, unbeknownst to me, he read the book and he knew what I wanted to do. So he was just telling me what I'd already written, you know what I mean? Like, but in my excitement, I thought, yeah, okay, you go ahead. So we decided, he said, well, we got to write the script, you know. Okay. So we sat down. We worked at night. The first night we sat there, he wrote on the first page, film play, Roger Ward, Terry Burke. The second night was there. He changed the page to screenplay, Terry Burke, Roger Ward. You know, the second night.
Oh, my God.
He changed it.
Really?
And he started to change dialogue into his... He's not very good with dialogue. And I'm not bragging, but I'm very good with dialogue. Being an actor, I think we're very good with dialogue. You know, we can write dialogue well. Actors can, you know. And so I kept saying, no, this is bullshit. No, don't do that. Well, we had blazing rows, Terry and I, until such time as it got to the stage where, mate, take my damn name off it, you know. By then I knew how much money I was getting. I was getting over $80,000 for the script, but I knew that. So I said, take my name off the bloody script, mate. I don't want my name on the script. It's a novel by me, but I don't want my name on that bloody script. But I didn't want to do another set, like I'd already been burnt by the set, you know. Yeah. So Terry's face broke into a great big smiling beam. Really? You know what your name on the set? No, I don't want a name on it. So he took my name off very happily and very quickly. And so it went out written by Terry Burke from a novel by Roger Ward. But he changed the Vietnam to Timor, and he changed all the guts of the film out, changed it totally. So therefore, I still had that original novel. I mean, the film that Terry made was nothing like the book that I had. And the other day I found it in the bottom drawer, and I found a sequel completed, and I found a third halfway through. Like, same theme, those two characters. So I suddenly thought, bugger that. So I got hold of the reflex, as it was called, and went through it, and I re-edited it. And now I'm re-editing the sequel, and now I'm getting into the third volume, which is not completed. So I've got 3 more novels to do, you know what I mean? So I'm flat out writing all the time. I never stop. I work at 3 or 4 in the morning. You're a
very busy man.
Yeah.
But are there any more movies, television shows in the pipeline?
I've got an Indian film. I did sections of it down here in last September, I think it was, and that's not in the production yet. I did my bits ready for a Zoom. They'll show it as a Zoom on the big film when they make it. They'll be looking at the computer and they'll come on. So I did those parts here, and they use that as a Zoom, you know what I mean? Yep. But later on, I'll be going up there and finishing it off as the character in real life, you know, as well. But I've just done a part of it already. I don't know when. He was going to go into production earlier this year, but he hasn't started production yet. But I'm still waiting. He keeps writing to me and saying, won't be long. And he pushes me like hell. He's very good on publicity. And he's shoving me all over India. Everywhere you go in India, you can see me. Coming soon, you know, soon, Roger Ward. So he's a very good publicist, plus the director. He's a very good director. So that's that one. And I've got another film in September in Cannes. and they just wrote to me. The people who are doing the film in Cairns wrote to me about 3 days ago and said, look, would you mind coming up for 2 films? We'll do 2 films back to back. So I said, yeah, sure, no worries about that. I didn't even read the script. I've got one script. I didn't read the script, the other one. I said, yeah, I'll be there. So there's 3 films this year that I'm tied up for, but I don't really care. I'm happy writing, you know what I mean? I don't care about acting anymore.
Just do it, hun. Do it.
Yeah. Oh, I'll do it.
You'll have a ball. You'll have a ball on those sets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just that I won't chase it, you know?
Well, all I can say is this has been a huge life, a very, very big life, and it's so wonderful to know more about you, and thank you so much for being on the show. Really, really appreciate it. It's just been wonderful, delightful, and always love seeing you.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, it's great. Thanks, Louise. It's been lovely.
Yeah.
We've had a bit of a history ourselves. A few laughs along the way.
Sure
and
do.
It's lovely to talk to you this way as well.
You bet.
Yeah, we don't see each other that often, but when we do see each other, we certainly, it's like yesterday.
Wasn't it? Isn't it? Always.
Yeah.
And those hugs are very, very special. Very special.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the very, very best, my darling, and just enjoy all the work that you do.
Thanks, darling. Lovely. Thank you. Best of luck. Enjoy it. And best of wishes for the blog. Yeah.
Well, my lovelies, wasn't that a journey? Roger Ward, what an incredible life. I mean, 18 years old and already meeting Marlon Brando and working on Mutiny on the Bounty. Talk about starting at the top. It does feel like the stars align, doesn't it? What synchronicity. And he certainly didn't coast after coming home to Australia. That man put in the work. Just look at those credits. Over 100 roles in television and film. Simply astounding. That's before you even factor in all the brilliant writing and script editing he's done over the years. He's still creating, still going strong, a true force of nature. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing his stories with you today. A good place to catch up with some of Roger's work is at rolly.com.au. Now keep those beautiful minds happy and engaged, because I promise you, our next guest is going to bring you just as much, if not more, joy. You won't want to miss it. This is Lulu, signing off from Set to Sofa with Lulu. A bientôt.
Thanks for listening with an open heart. But now it's time for us to part. So tell everybody that you know to tune in next week to Lulu's show. From Set to Sofa is where it's at. And Lulu, darling, just loves a chat. She talks to starlets with grace and style. Lulu sure will make you smile.